and he says out loud, "Oh, I guess I'm just not going to win, am I?" And the judge gets pissed. He's like, "You have no respect for me. You have no respect for this court." Hey, YouTube. I'm wearing a suit. You're probably thinking, why is Dan wearing a suit? We never see Dan wearing a suit. Well, I have to go to court today.
So are you recording all of the nefarious activities?
For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Dan, and we usually talk about supercars and supercar stuff, and today we're going to talk about my company because it was sued, and I am going to court in about 20 minutes. And actually, it's a lawsuit we already talked about, so if you watch that video, you already kind of know what this is about. When you own a business, you are going to get sued at some point. I was sued for an event that wasn't even my event. It was actually a third party's event, and we were doing the marketing for it. The guy decided he didn't want to go because there was a possibility of rain, even though it was a rain or shine event, and so he didn't want to go and wanted a refund. And of course the organizer said, sorry, your money's already been spent on the event, so no refunds. Well, they went back and forth a bunch. I was unaware of any of this, and then the person who bought the event did a chargeback against me because it was through my website. So we fought the chargeback and actually won, which was awesome. And then 2 years go by and I get served papers, and he sues me in small claims court. So we already went to small claims court, and in small claims court, they awarded him a $1,000 judgment. I think that you are both at fault here, and so I'm going to award the plaintiff $1,000. So I'm out $1,000. The original charge was like $2,600 and something dollars, so it was like a $2,400 event plus tax. So I was like, whatever, fine, let's just pay him $1,000. He goes away, even though that means I'm out $1,000 for this whole thing, like, and never got any of this money. And he appealed it. So now we're going to real court, not small claims court, where I, as a business owner, cannot represent myself, which is probably a good thing because I'm not a lawyer. So I had to hire a lawyer and pay thousands of dollars in legal fees to defend myself because he wants his $2,600 back. Oh, and did I mention that he didn't pay his credit card bill after they settled the chargeback in our favor, and so his credit card company actually sued him and took him to court, but they didn't show up, so he won that. So he actually hasn't paid anything. So at this point, if he wins today, he's going to be profiting off of me, basically stealing money from me, because he's already got his money back. So that's the legal system in the United States. I don't want to make any predictions because I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, but at the same time, I know that, like, you just never know. He might put on a sob story. It might convince the judge. Hopefully the judge looks at the facts. The facts are kind of in our favor, but if he pleads some emotional woe is me thing, who knows? So we're going to also countersue to get my legal fees reimbursed. I put that at like a 5% chance I'll actually get that. I'd say there's like a greater than 50% chance we'll get the case dismissed, but very, very slim chance we'll get the legal fees reimbursed. So we'll see. There's a bunch more funny stuff around this whole thing. It's been a long time coming, but anyway, I'm gonna go to court and I'll talk to you when I get back, and hopefully I'm smiling and not very sad. So stay tuned.
The next day.
Okay, YouTube. It's actually the next day. Court went way longer than expected. So my appointment was the court session, began at 1:30. I'm totally ignorant to any of this. I've never been to court before. So I didn't realize they had I'm gonna say 10, 15 cases total. There was a bunch of other cases that were before us. We actually were the lucky ones to go last. Yay! All these other cases went, and by the time they finally get to us, it's already like 3:15. So we've already been there for well over an hour and a half or whatever. A quick lesson learned on that: every single case where someone had a lawyer and the other person didn't have a lawyer, the one with the lawyer won. So I'm just going to put that out there. Like, if you ever have to go to court, hire a lawyer, because it seems to improve your chances. All the other cases were pretty boring. They were like evictions and defaults on credit cards. I think that was it. That was the only other types of cases. It was really boring. Anyway, so we finally have to go up there. The judge was really kind of stern, but by the book, and I actually appreciate that because, like, it should be by the law. They start off, and, you know, he's the plaintiff, so he gets to go first. He doesn't have his lawyer, right? So he immediately violates process, and he's doing everything wrong. Immediately starts off into his, like, story. So the judge is like, okay, if you're going to testify, I need to swear you in as a witness. And he's like, okay. So he swears him in as a witness. So he tells his whole story about how he signed up for our tour, and the name changed, and it's not the same tour, and he doesn't have a contract, and we signed this contract, and blah, 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 and all that stuff. Which, this was a very interesting thing, is he kept trying to say that he signed a contract and sent it to us, and that literally never happened. He signed up for this tour through our website. There's nowhere, anywhere, where he signed any papers. There's no papers to sign for this. The only papers he may have signed may have been with the tour master, because he might have some disclaimers and you know, do not sue stuff, which it's funny how that worked. So there is no signed contract. There is a contract, which was the website, right? Which is also, in some respects, our advertisement, because you can read it and see it, and then you can choose to buy the tour or not. And a quick little interesting note is that when products are no longer offered on my website, I tend to delete them because I don't want someone buying a product that doesn't exist anymore, especially in this particular instance because I didn't want to promote someone else's company. I didn't want to promote the tour master's company if he severed relationships with us. So, like, why would I give him free marketing, right, off of my website? No, it's going to go away. That's how business works. So he goes into his story. It's not good from the start. Like, he's talking circles, trying to make the same points against himself over and over. And funny enough, you know, he had introduced evidence in the lower court about how he got sued by his credit card company, went to court, and the credit card company didn't show up, so he won that suit by default. So in other words, if you haven't seen the whole story of what happened, go watch it. But he buys this tour from my website, decides not to go because it's raining, so he does a chargeback against my company. We dispute the chargeback and win. So at this point, we've got the money, which we've already sent to the tour master to pay for his spot in this tour. So I don't actually have any money. I literally have $0 of his money. He decides not to pay his credit card bill, independent of all of this, right? So his credit card company puts him in default, kills his credit, and takes him to court to pay his credit card bill. And then they don't show up, so he doesn't ever actually pay his credit card bill, but he paid some lawyers to represent him in this fight. At this point now, he even sent the credit card stuff to the courts. He only's out $1,300. A quick side note, I just find this really interesting. So this got appealed a long time ago, and then the court was scheduled for over a month and a half ago, and then he asked for a continuance because of health reasons. It's fine, whatever. Well, then this week, like 3 days before court, he files for another continuance, and it was hilarious because he, like, blames my lawyer for the date of the trial. And my lawyer's like, we don't set the date, the court does. The judge actually denied the continuance. He's like, we're going to court. He wanted to, get another continuance because he said he still was not in good health. Well, he showed up and he was fine. So I think that was a little bit of a BS, but whatever. So he tells his story, and it's not based on he doesn't submit any evidence. He doesn't do anything proper because, again, he doesn't have a lawyer. He's just telling his story. He finally is done after, I don't know, probably a half hour of just rambling on and on. My lawyer finally gets to do his thing. So he starts going through, we had like 20 documents, right? And so he's like, okay, here's the first document. He was asking plaintiff, do you recognize this document? Yes. Okay. And like, it was so weird because he'd be like, oh, no, I don't recognize it. And then he's like, well, that's your email address on it, right? This was sent to you. He's like, oh, yeah, okay, I recognize it. And it's like, oh, my God. So he would go through point by point because, we had document after document after document of him admitting and saying that he didn't want to go because of the weather. And in none of these emails, we had a stack of emails this thick when printed out. In that huge stack of emails, nowhere once did he ever mention anything about not having a contract, about the name change, about the fact that it was actually the tour master's tour and not my tour. I'm just the marketing. Never complained about anything like that. He only mentions the weather. We're going through and getting him to admit, yes, he said that. Yes, he said that. All that stuff. Basically doing proper lawyer stuff. At this point, I'm feeling like we could probably meet our goal. My goal was to get the case dismissed. I just didn't want him to get a red cent at this point because it was frivolous. Now, my secondary goal, which is a loftier goal, was let's see if we can get my lawyer's fees covered because I shouldn't have to be out for a frivolous lawsuit. But we'll get to that. This takes probably at least another 45 minutes, and it's partly because like the plaintiff is just, I don't know if he has mild dementia or something, but it would be so frustrating. The way it works is like you present your evidence, you go through it, you get them to admit to stuff, and then when you're done, you say, I'd like to submit this as evidence to the court. This is, defendant's document 7 or whatever. And then the judge would be like, okay, admitting defendant's document 7, do you have any objections? And he would be like, yeah, I object. And the judge was like, okay, what do you object on? And he's like, yeah, I don't like the wording on this or something like, and like, it was like, no, do you object that it's a factually correct document? It has nothing to do with what the document contains. It has to do with, do you object to having the, and it was just like, he would do this over and over, and you could see everyone's starting to get pissed. The judge is starting to get pissed. My lawyer's starting to get pissed. I'm doing my best to put on like the most non-emotional face I can because I don't want to be that guy in court, and I want to just present as professional as possible. And I'll admit, like, sometimes it was getting so frustrating that a couple times I caught myself going, like sighing and stuff. And I looked over and I saw the county clerk doing a sigh once because it was just, it was like crazy land. It was absolutely insane. Finally, we get through all of this and he's like, well, I need to like object to some of these documents. And then the judge is like, you already admitted these documents. We can't go back and object to them. Well, I need to, defend some of them, or I have problems with some or whatever. And so he wants to like go back to these documents that already got admitted and fight on some of the points of them. But it's like that. No, you already, this isn't like, anyway, again, this is why you hire a lawyer because this isn't how it works. And the judge is getting kind of mad at this point. He's like, no. And mind you, it's now like 4:30, 4:40. This is Memorial Day weekend. No one wants to be there late. Everyone wants to get out of here. At some point, the judge stops everyone and says, look, I think we need to recess until like May 30th or whatever. And I'm just like, man, like, damn it. I got to come back and waste more of my time on this. My lawyer's time. It's going to cost more money. God, I'm like, damn it. Judge is like, we were scheduled, we estimated this was going to be an hour and a half. We're already approaching 2 hours, and it's not looking like it's going to wrap up. Everyone doesn't want this. So finally the judge is like, tell you what, if you guys can wrap this up in like 10 minutes, we'll keep going. He goes back to the plaintiff. He's like, do you have any other witnesses? He's like, yeah, I'm going to call him. And the judge is like, who is him? He's like, Daniel. And I'm like, okay. Like it was so weird. It was like, oh, you can't even say my name? Like, okay, whatever. So I have to get sworn in and be a witness. To me, this was the best moment of the whole thing. Like, I was nervous, I'll admit. Like, I've never been in court. I've never been a witness. I didn't want to be a witness, but I knew I was going to have to. The plaintiff, clearly his strategy was to try and get me to admit that this contract didn't exist in a signed format or that I didn't have a copy of it or something like that. And that was his proof somehow that this whole thing didn't happen or something, right? So he starts off with like, are you a contract lawyer? And I'm like, no. He's like, did you have a contract lawyer draft up this contract? And I'm like, no. He's like, are you aware that this is an ad or a contract? I'm like, well, it's both. He's like, it can't be both. Documents can't be both. They're either one or the other. I'm like, well, no, it's an advertisement on a website, but it's also the contract for what you're signing up. He's like, no, that's not how it works. And he like gets mad at me and starts like going at it. And of course, my lawyer's objecting to stuff. He's like, well, where'd you get this contract? I'm like, well, this is the contract that you submitted to the lower courts. He's like, well, you can't use that. And we're all like, what? And so my lawyer's like, Your Honor, yes, we can, blah, blah. The Honor's like, he's like, yes, they can use this. It was submitted as evidence. They're allowed to use this. When he was saying these things and getting me to admit yes or no, he thought he was like winning. And he was all like you can see him be like, I gotcha. And I'm just thinking to myself, this is going nowhere, man. And so he ends up like talking more circles, trying to get the same points over and over, trying to get me to admit the same stuff. It's going nowhere. And in fact, like, the more and more the plaintiff talks, the deeper the hole gets, and you can just see this thing is just, he's donezo, right? Like, it's so bad. And the judge is just getting more and more pissed. Finally, he, like, mentally admits defeat, and he says out loud, "Well, I guess I'm just not going to win, am I?" And the judge gets pissed. He's like, "You have no respect for me. You have no respect for this court," and chastises him. And I'm just like, oh crap! What? In mind you, I'm like sitting right next to a judge. I'm up on the witness stand, like, oh my god, this is nuts. And so finally, he rests, and my lawyer at this point, I think, sees that we've got this in the bag. So all he does is ask me to prove that I transferred the money from my account to the tourmaster's account to pay for the plaintiff's spot in this tour. And so, we go through that real quick. It takes, a minute. So we sit back down, and my lawyer is like, they're like, "Do you have anything else?" And my lawyer's like, "Yes, I need to just testify about my lawyer's fees." So he goes through that whole thing. And so when he submits his rate, like, he has a invoice that he sent me, and he submits that, and the plaintiff objects to it. And the lawyer's like, "Why do you object to it?" He's like, "Well, I don't like the numbers on there. The numbers are facts. The numbers are just, do you accept that this is factually correct?" And he's like, "Well, it's too much money. He paid too much." And like, so he's objecting to the fact that I hired a lawyer and my lawyer cost me a bunch of money. This is getting insane. It's like, this is all like La La Land stuff. Like, he doesn't get any of this. Doesn't understand how any of this works. So finally, after another 5 minutes of bickering, the document gets accepted, and the judge is like, "Okay, we're done here." My lawyer submits a motion to, I can't remember, summarily dismiss it, or I don't know, something, right? A motion to dismiss, I guess. I don't know the legal terms. He immediately is like, "I am dismissing with prejudice, and I'm awarding full legal fees, document fees, and any other court costs to the defendant." So we not only got it dismissed with prejudice, he has to pay for all of my fees. So I'm hopefully going to be out nothing at this point. Finally, justice is served. It was what a relief. Here's a few lessons learned. I feel like I actually played this really well from a business ROI perspective. In the lower courts, I represented myself, and he got a $1,000 judgment against us. So I would have only been out $1,000, which would have been way less than any lawyer possibly would have cost, as evidenced by my current lawyer fees of $3,800. I think I played that really well, and then we went to the higher courts, in which I did have to hire a lawyer. So in hindsight, if I ever were to get sued again in small claims, I would represent myself in small claims, see how that plays out, because you can automatically appeal no matter what from small claims to a higher court. So you might as well represent yourself, try and fight it, and if you win, great, and if you don't, appeal it. And then you're out the lawyer's fees anyway. I'm proud of myself. I played this one really well. I tried to remain as professional as possible. I did everything. I minimized my costs. And that's what you're supposed to do as a business owner, right? So that I'm really happy about. So the second thing I want to point out is my lawyer, Ali Akhtar, killed it. Really reasonable rate, did a very good job. If you're in the Austin area, I would highly recommend him for civil court matters. Link in the description below. His rates were completely reasonable. Honestly, like, that was my biggest fear, is like some of the lawyers I was talking to wanted like $900 an hour, and it was going to cost me like $6,000 to $10,000. And the fact that I only got billed $3,800, and this seemed like a lot of work. Like, there was a lot of documents, a lot of evidence to sort through. So a huge amount of his time was just sorting through all of that evidence and stuff. In fact, he actually said he spent over an hour just printing and organizing all of the evidence. Literally a stack of evidence this thick. It probably took an entire book of paper to print on. So I feel like no lawyer for small claims, totally a reasonable thing to do. Lawyer up as soon as you get past small claims, absolutely, because otherwise you're gonna get your ass kicked. Like I said, every single person there who represented themselves lost. Every single one, including the plaintiff in my case. So where are we now? Well, the good news is it's very unlikely he's going to appeal, because of the nature of appealing it. From this point, it gets really difficult. Like, you have to basically be appealing. You can't appeal the court's decision because you didn't like the court's decision at this point. You can in small claims. You can't in this. So he has to have like a legal justification for appealing, like something like the trial didn't go right or whatever, which I'm going to say, given the circumstances, seems unlikely. Also, he can't represent himself in an appeal like this. He would have to lawyer up, and it would be extraordinarily expensive. Basically, that's from what my lawyer told me, because I was like, is this just going to happen again? I'm just going to go into like court hell. He's like, unlikely. So I feel pretty good about that. Here's where it gets kind of fun. Knowing this person, there's an entire strong possibility that they're going to play games with trying to pay me. And I might be spilling the beans here, but I don't care because I think it's hilarious. So, if someone sues you and you don't pay, they can come after your possessions. They can't take your house. Your house is protected. And they can't take your car that you use to commute to work and stuff. So for each person in the family. So if, for example, Meg and I, 2 cars, they can't take 2 of our cars. Well, he happens to have a Ferrari that we know about. That is an extra car. That is a superfluous car. You bet your ass that we're going to put a lien on that thing if he doesn't pay. Oh, yeah. We're going to go for the Ferrari. I mean, in a world of weird cosmic justice, to me, that would be the most awesome thing ever, is if we put a lien on his Ferrari and he's forced to sell it because of this idiotic court case. In a way, I kind of hope he doesn't pay me, because I will throw money on top of this, because I'm already in $3,800, right? So I have nothing to lose. I'm going to keep going till I get that money. And if that means I get a lien on a Ferrari, I am definitely going to do that. So that's where we're at now. Oh, one last quick thing, just to show you the character of this individual. Obviously he might have some dementia. I don't know. He's an older guy. Clearly he's one of these people that just feels entitled, because that's the only thing I can think of. Court didn't wrap up until well after 5. My lawyer had to stay and submit papers to court, so I left. And I get a call from my lawyer at like 5:30 something, 5:40 something, whatever. Anyway, as he was leaving, so he finally wrapped up everything. He's leaving. He's walking in the parking lot, and the plaintiff happened to be walking in the parking lot. And the way Ali described it, he's like, there was this surreal moment where I see this elderly gentleman who has health problems walking out to his car, and he turns around and sees me, and he gives me the bird. And I'm just like, of course he did. That is exactly this person's character. That moment right there, it summarizes the entire thing. Yeah. Anyway, I'll leave you with that. Ali Akhtar killed it. Again, if you need him as a lawyer, this is not paid, not a sponsored thing. Obviously, I've paid him. I just feel like he did a really good job. I'm very satisfied with his work. If you get sued, lawyer up. It seems to make a huge difference. Here's the other thing I want to point out. I wanted to fight this really hard because I wanted to make sure that we could kind of almost make a statement that if you come at us with some stupid lawsuit, we're going to fight it. We're not going to just roll over and give you money. Because we've had other people threaten to sue us, and I want to be able to use this as justification and be like, we're ready to fight. Because I hate that. I hate the idea of filing lawsuits because you feel like there is some perceived injustice when it's not legally an injustice. Yeah, I'm glad this is over. I can finally sleep at night. I don't have to worry about this. So onward to better things. We will obviously be doing more cool car stuff, so please like, share, and subscribe. Check out our websites, normalguysupercar.com. There you can buy parts and services and occasionally tours. We have the Tour of Colorado coming up, so if you want to join us on a tour, that'd be great. If you sign up, don't be a dick. Also, check out NG Supercars, our dealership website. We do appreciate your guys' support. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next one. We're going to be doing a lot of cool car stuff. You're going to want to stay tuned. It's going to be sweet. Less legal fees.